Hi, it's Mike Gastineau here for Swinomish Casino and Lodge, one of the title sponsors for iconic Sonics and a great place to get away from the hustle and bustle of Seattle. Just an hour north of the Emerald City and just outside of Anacortes on Highway 20. Beautiful views of Padilla Bay and Mount Baker and fast-paced gaming. Great entertainment, terrific food, a perfect getaway place for you and your friends, the Swinomish Casino and Lodge. When you need your next getaway, go to SwinomishCasinoandLodge.com. Tell them Mike Gastineau sent you, and be sure to check out the Iconic Sonics podcast and our great conversation with several Seattle Supersonics from the past, the present, and the future.
Truth Plus Media.
It's Iconic Sonics, and it's all brought to you by the Swinomish Casino and Lodge and Dick's Drive-In restaurants. I'm looking at a guy who is iconic, who I'm going to guess has had a Dick's Deluxe or two in his life. He's been a fixture in Seattle really since the early 80s, and he wandered off and did some NBA work at other places, but he's thought of as a Sonic. Detlef, it's great to see you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
I mentioned early 80s. You got here. You were a UW star and on some of the great teams in UW history. As we record this, it's St. Patrick's Day morning. The NCAA tournament has just started. I think this will play back next week. So we'll know if you had any kind of a clue or not. Who you got going all the way in your bracket? Who do you like in this tournament that's just getting started? And by the time we play this back, we'll know if you and I had any ideas.
Well, I mean, I'm a hometown boy, and obviously our Huskies are not in it, but I got to go with Gonzaga. I think it's their turn, it's their time, and hopefully they get there. I mean, they seem to be getting there. They just haven't closed the deal, so I'm rooting for them, and hopefully someone in our state will win that championship.
You know, Gonzaga is a great example. We talk about this sometimes with the '90s Sonics. The ultimate goal is to win a championship, and I get that. But when you're good for this long, what Mark Few has done over there, and I mean, good, they're great. They're in it every year. They dominate their conference. No one's been able to catch them there. It's really impressive what he's done over there, isn't it, to stay this good for this long?
Totally. I mean, you talk about a small market team. I think it's a special place because the school is pretty cool. They give you great education. It's a great community. There's nothing else to compete with you. There's no football, there's no professional sports, and they kind of have the market cornered. And I think he started 20 some years ago, getting players in there that maybe were overlooked by other, schools, by the big programs, and really through coaching and mentorship, made them into some great players. And now he's getting top-notch players. And at the same time, he's always recruited overseas. He's always has a one or two, as George Carl would probably say, the white stiff on the team, but, a guy that can shoot and pass and rebound, and really has made a difference in their program over the last, 15 years or so. So he's an amazing coach, and he's done a great job over there.
That's part of your legacy, I think, the overseas recruiting. I mean, you were one of the first who came over. You had a name that was easy to remember. It rhymed. It was, Detlef Schrempf. And everybody knew who you were. All these years later now, it's rare to see a college game where there isn't an overseas player. And I'm not saying you get the credit for all that, but you certainly, I think, probably lit the fire in a lot of guys that this was possible. Did you realize that at the time, or did you have to get a little bit of years on you before you look back and said, wow, I was a little bit of a trailblazer?
Well, yes and no. There were kids, or there were, now obviously guys that are ahead of me that I know back then went to the States for a year and came back and had improved as a basketball player. So I didn't really have any plans past that. I wanted to come over for a year and learn English and play basketball and just experience something totally different. And it was a pretty lonely road for a while. First in college, obviously Christian Welp came a couple of years later, But then in the pros, I was pretty much by myself for a while before there were any really European players that came over. So yeah, there were people before me that started the process, but they didn't make it in the NBA. They didn't make it in the big leagues. And then it took quite a few years after me for others to follow my footsteps. But again, everyone did it their own way. Some guys came over in college, some guys played professionally over there, and then made the leap over. But yeah, I was pretty much by myself at that point, and I think just in the mid '80s, late '80s, actually professional teams started scouting overseas, and that had never happened before.
How did, and I'm sure we've talked about this before, but refresh my memory. How did the connection get to the state of Washington? You're in Germany, and you decide, hey, I'm going to go over to America and test my skills. You become a decent player at your high school age. And then Centralia, of all places. I mean, there's a whole country between here and there that you could have stopped anywhere. How did that connection come about?
It was just my backup plan. We had I played on a club team that was probably the Boston Celtics of Germany at the time. They won like 10 out of 12 years. They won the championship. And, I was a 16-year-old kid that at that point was probably the best or, one of the top 2-3 players in Germany in that age group. And, I was looking, okay, well, what else can I do? And we had some American players on our team actually from that played at UCLA with Bill Walton. So they were like, you got to go to States, man. You got the way you are, tall, can handle the ball. You got to go to States. And they said, we got perfect school for you in LA. We'll set you up. And I would say the typical LA never happened thing. I never got the coach's address, the school. Never got any information. And then another guy on the team, he spent a year in the U.S. He basically told me, hey, if nothing happens here, here's Coach Brown from Centralia that I went to 2 years ago. Good program, small town, great coach. Just, if nothing comes through here. And so as a backup, I wrote him a letter and I kind of said, hey, I'm interested in coming for a year to learn English and play basketball. And did the conversion from centimeters to inches and told him I was like 6'4.5". And two weeks later, I had all the information. I had my application for a student visa, everything, and it was ready to go. So that's how it happened.
So it came down to LA or Centralia, and what did the small town American life do to shape you? I mean, because LA would have been a completely different experience, obviously. Do you, as you look back on it, were there positive impacts of just being a small town guy and kind of getting into this thing slowly?
Well, I think it was perfect for me because, who knows, LA, there's a lot of stuff going on. I could have been a surfer, who I had just no idea. But, I remember landing after, a trip from hell because I had like $150 for my flight. And I went from like Frankfurt to Luxembourg to Iceland to Detroit in like 36 hours. I finally made it. And Coach Brown picked me up at like 1 a.m. at the airport, and he looks at me and goes, you're not 6'4.5". I was like 6'7.5", and then grew another inch, and before the season started, and then grew another inch in my senior year. And but it worked out great because it was a basketball crazy small town. It was like Friday night lights. I mean, we had a small gym, maybe 1,200 people fit in there, and every game we had 1,500 people in there. It was packed. The doors were open to the outside, to the cafeteria, and people were lined up. We had just a great team. We had 10 seniors, and we won the state championship undefeated, and it was just a great atmosphere to be part of. It was a step back as far as socially, being an adult in Germany at 16, 17, and then coming back and being a child, but it was a great experience.
We'll talk about some of your NBA stuff later, but I'm going to jump ahead in your career to now. Last year, you went into the FIBA Hall of Fame, the kind of International Basketball Governing Hall of Fame. And congratulations. I did not know that. I started preparing for this. That's no small thing. What about the Naismith Hall of Fame? I think you've talked about it before, and you're an interesting candidate for that. And I'm going to draw a comparison in a minute. How big a deal would that be to you, and how do you think you should be in there? Are you a worthy candidate?
Well, I don't really, I don't compare myself to others and why is this guy in there, why I'm not, whatever, to me, do I have a case to be in it? I don't know. I mean, you can say a 3-time All-Star or twice won the Sixth Man of the Year award, first European, made the All-Star game, all those things. You can say all those things, but didn't win a championship, so I was not an MVP. So I don't know. I know it's a lot of it is political, so you got to have some advocates that go and knock on the doors and fill out all the stuff you can't do for yourself. And I'm okay. I think my life is okay without it. It would be a great honor, but at the same time, I'm not gonna lose any sleep over it. So.
And I never thought about this until I started thinking about our conversation, but there is a direct comparison to somebody and somebody I'm sure you've spent a little bit of time with over the years. And you guys, personality-wise, are the same way. And I'm talking about Edgar Martinez. We'll shift sports and go over to baseball. Edgar was a star in Seattle about the same time you were a star in Seattle. You guys had very similar personalities, quiet leaders, quietly getting the job done. And Edgar, one of the things that finally got him in, he was one of 18 players who hit 300 or more, had an on-base percentage of 400 or higher, and a slugging percentage of 500 or higher. And there were some other things that worked in. And it took forever for everybody to kind of realize you've got to look at Edgar's entire body of work. You've got a unique thing like that, too. You're one of 16 guys in NBA history with 15,500 or more points, 7,000 rebounds, 3,800 assists. So you did a lot of things really well. How's that for a comparison? I don't know what Edgar's basketball game was like, but he finally did get into the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I think that's similar. I think when you look at it, because you can't look at your career and go, well, he should get in because of this number or this. You kind of have to take the whole thing into consideration. And I think sometimes voters don't do that.
Yeah, I don't know what they vote on. I know I was a huge fan of number 11. Those were the good days when I used to go to Mariners games all the time because they were great. They all came to our games. Ken Griffey and Alex Rodriguez used to hang out in our practice facility and shoot around, and it was just a great time to be in Seattle in the sports scene. We had just some really, really good people that did some amazing things in our community, with Edgar and Dan Wilson and people that were really involved. Again, it is what it is. I don't know. You can twist every statistic on why it makes sense and on why it doesn't. So, like I said, it's to a certain degree, it's political. You got to get some people behind you that will push and push and push and get the ball moving. But again, I'm not too worried about it.
Right. I mean, to your point, I know I'm talking about something here that you're not spending nights sleeplessly worrying about this. I know your personality well enough that you're comfortable with what you accomplished and you had a great career. But I'll bring up one more thing, and this kind of is the purpose of our podcast, is to keep the Sonics history alive. Edgar had a great assist in getting into the Hall of Fame because the Mariners really did a nice campaign over about 6 years, and they didn't beat anybody over the head. They didn't yell at anybody. They just said, hey, they kept saying, keep looking at his numbers, look at the whole career, look at everything he did. You don't have that right now. I mean, the Sonics departure robs you of that. I mean, I guess the Pacers could pick up the mantle, or the Mavericks, but that would be going back a ways. The Blazers at the end of your career, and again, without building this up as Det's sitting around all crushed that he isn't in the Hall of Fame yet. That's not the case. But it's another reason why it's such a travesty that the Sonics went away, is that for guys like you, for Gary, for Sean, I think for George, who finally is in line to get into the Hall of Fame, when the team is gone, that impacts those kinds of things, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would think so. To me, that's not the huge impact that the departure of the Sonics has had on our community. It's just sad we don't have a team. They've been gone for a long time, because I think basketball players, especially our generation, we were so involved in the community, and we were visible. People saw us all the time. We didn't have helmets on, so that was recognition was one, but we were all in the community. I mean, I remember always going out for dinner, and there'd be Gary, there'd be Sean, there'd be Hershey Hawkins, there'd have dinner with Nate and Sam Perkins. We were always in the community, and it was like an everyday thing. And I think people could relate to that. They can bring their kids to the games and hang out, and we don't have that. So we don't have a team to cheer for, and that's almost now a whole generation of people growing up with their kids and can't take them to a game. And I love going to a Storm game, and they've created a great atmosphere. The Sounders are great, but when you have kids playing basketball and you can't take them to an NBA game and kind of see how big the people are, it's just a different thing.
To wrap up this first segment, you mentioned community involvement, and the Detlef Schrempf Foundation existed for I think 20 or 22 years, and it is sunsetted now. But in that time, what an impactful thing you did, and it was you and a lot of other people. You'd be quick to deflect the credit, but somebody's name had to be on it. Your name was on the masthead for all those years. Give me a quick thing on how that came about, the golf tournament, the gala. The amount of money that was raised is staggering over the years. Was that something that as a kid, like you were like, if I'm ever at a certain point, I want to give back? I mean, did that come from your family, or where did it come, this desire to say, all right, I want to be more than just a basketball player. I want to do something in the community?
I don't know. I've always been part of that. Even when I was playing basketball in Germany, I was the youngest. I think at 15 years old, I was the youngest person ever to get a official coaching license. And in Germany, you have to actually get coaching license, and it's no small feat. It's literally months of training and seminars and tests. And so I got my coaching C license, which meant that I could coach kids my age. And then there's a B license, and then the A is for all professionals only. But it was just, when I coached a level 3 team, where half the guys couldn't dribble a basketball, but it was just that part of, hey, I have something to share, let's do it. And we've always done that. And then, I think you go through life in all these different stages of always scaling and wanting more, and got to get a bigger car, I got to get a bigger house, I got to get a bigger contract, I got to get more shots, I got to get more minutes, all those things. And you eventually get to a point where maybe it's having kids or whatever. Okay, what's really your impact? What are you trying to accomplish? And with us, it was first about children. So when we got traded back to Seattle, we were like, okay, how do we get in the community? And then obviously, Chris very well from KGR radio, and he goes, oh, you got to do a golf tournament. That's the big thing. Think about 26 years ago, golf tournament was the big thing, celebrity golf tournament. You bring in all your friends, and that's how it started. And then it just exploded, where we had to, hire staff and start a foundation, because it was just overwhelming. We did so many different events, so many appearances. And, Nicole Morrison ran our foundation, and Chris Levitt from KJR was the president, and Mary, my wife, was very involved. And it's just a great time to be in our community, because we had so much support, from the sponsors to the people that attended and donated money or bought, auction items or whatever it is. It was a great run. And, we did it for 24 years. And, and then you kind of age out, so you move on to other things.
You guys, you and your wife and your family and Chris, you did plenty. I mean, you're to be commended for what was, in fact, a great run and a lot of money raised. Detlef Schrempf with us on Iconic Sonics. When we come back, we're going to check the veracity of a claim Danny O'Neill made on this show a couple of months back. As Iconic Sonics rolls on, brought to you by the Swinomish Casino and Lodge and Dick's Drive-In Restaurants. Iconic Sonics is proudly supported by Swinomish Casino and Lodge, and they're proud partners with Iconic Sonics. They're located on beautiful Padilla Bay, just north of Seattle. Casino, lodge, dining, entertainment, and more. Swinomish Casino and Lodge provides a perfect getaway for relaxation. A full-service entertainment destination, including a 98-room luxury lodge, multi-purpose event center, and casino, Open daily from 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. with a great mix of slot machines and Las Vegas-style table games. And for the food connoisseur, check out the 13 Moons Dining Experience, one of the finest in the area, a beautiful restaurant with cuisine designed to enhance the flavors of the Northwest. Swinomish Casino and Lodge, check out the best casino in the area with the most outstanding customer service, offering a luxuriant, state-of-the-art experience while maintaining and upholding the cultural identity of the Swinomish tribe. Swinomish Casino and Lodge. Find out more at SwinomishCasinoandLodge.com. That's SwinomishCasinoandLodge.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. Iconic Sonics is fed by Dick's Drive-In Restaurants. What can I tell you about Dick's food that you don't already know? Probably nothing. They're a Seattle legend for serving great burgers, great fries, great shakes. What I can tell you that you might not know is Dick's also has a cool t-shirt now that salutes the 95-96 NBA Finals Sonics team. Take a look at the Sonics t-shirts available through Dick's at Dick's Drive-Ins, their Twitter feed at Dick's Drive-Ins. You'll see the photos. You'll buy the shirt. You'll be happy. Thanks to Dick's Drive-In Restaurants for the support on Iconic Sonics. And our nonprofit sponsor on Iconic Sonics is the Run Freely Foundation, a 501c3 organization founded by our friend Kenny Main. It raises money to help financially support veterans who need limb salvage, medical care, and rehabilitation. Years ago, Kenny suffered a catastrophic ankle injury, and after years of pain, he found relief with treatment in 2017 that got him both walking and running again pain-free. With that discovery, Kenny wanted to help others in pain, and the Run Freely Foundation was born to help provide the care he received to those who cannot afford to cover its costs. You can find out more and get involved with this great organization at runfreely.org. The Run Freely Foundation, proud sponsor of Iconic Sonics. Back with Detlef Schrempf, and I mentioned Danny O'Neill and a claim he made. I had never heard this. I can't believe I covered most of your Seattle career. I think all of your Seattle career, and I'd never heard this story. Danny O'Neill was on with us a couple of months ago, and he said when you were in Dallas, I don't know if it was your first year, you were frustrated that you weren't playing to the point that you joined a rec league so you could get some run-in, so you could play a little bit. Tell me about that. I'm assuming that story's true. Danny has no reason to lie to us. What was the genesis of that, and how long did your run in the rec league last?
Well, I didn't join a rec league. I played in lunch hour, evening basketball at different clubs. I played on the roads, but I did that my whole career. When we had a few days off, and like I remember we were in DC. And we had like 2 days off between games. We didn't have practice and a sport. I went to Georgetown and went to the kind of intramural building and played in a pickup game. Just in Dallas, I was so pissed that they wouldn't play. I used to run in certain cities. I used to just leave my bag with the trainer and I run back from their game to the hotel, wherever it was. So it was just, I don't know. I love basketball. And that's what I wanted to get better at. And when you were frustrated early on not getting the playing time you think you deserve, right or wrong, and it's hard to stay in shape when you have 3 days in a row kind of games, no practices, and you're sitting on your butt. So I played wherever I could. I ran wherever I could and worked out wherever I could.
Did doubt ever creep in? Did you ever think, I'm not going to make it in the NBA for whatever reason? This guy doesn't want to play me, and I'm on a team that's Dallas was pretty good at the time. Did that doubt ever creep in, or did you think, look, I can play if they'll just give me a chance, I'm going to be able to play?
Yeah, my first 2 years in Dallas were I had a coach that was really hard to play for. Not going into details, but I played 30 games one game and then 0 minutes the next day, or 10 minutes, and there was no consistency, and it just and it was where I was really frustrated. And I was getting offers from Europe to go and play, for 4 or 5 times the salary I was getting here. So I took a couple of years. My third year, I finally started playing more, and then at the end of the year in the playoffs, I broke my ankle. And Western Conference Finals, and that was a big setback because it took forever to heal. But once I came out of that, I had no doubt I could have a very long career. But yeah, you doubt yourself because you come out of college like kids do are going into college. They're, the stars in high school, they go to college and don't play. That's why you see all these kids leaving and transferring all the time because they think they deserve all this. And sometimes they don't. And it's hard to accept.
Well, jump into that for just a moment. I mean, that's the reality of the college game right now. I mean, I'm watching my alma mater, Indiana, play, and I'm looking at every guy who's an underclassman thinking, I sure hope he wants to come back and play next year. I like that athletes have more freedom, but I do feel like it's a little out of control right now. I don't know what I'd do to fix it. What is the college game? Does it impact it negatively for you watching it to see these guys have so much movement?
I think it's gotten a lot harder to coach and a lot harder to have success because if things don't work out for a handful of kids, they will leave. And I don't know if that's just the system or if that's how, kids been not raised, but brought up through the system, through basketball, through AU, through high school, where everyone tells them they're the best and, they should have it all. And then they get to that next level and it's hard to take that maybe they are not the best. Somebody else is better and getting more minutes. And instead of, going to work, it's that sensitivity issue too of guys going, oh, shoot, this is not the place for me. Let's look somewhere else. And, I agree that sometimes it's not the perfect place for you. And maybe it's time to move on. But if you do that 2-3 times in 4 years, maybe you need to look in the mirror and say, okay, maybe it's me, or maybe I'm not good enough, or what do I want to try to get out of this? And it's hard. I think the college system, basketball especially, it might have some hard times. And some schools will excel because they've, raising tons of money to pay these kids, and others don't. So it'll be interesting to see where it is in 2-3 years.
So back to the NBA and your run, you go from Dallas up to Indiana, and you get a little more consistent in terms of playing time. You're still a sixth man, but you're playing a little bit more. And then you get traded to Seattle, and everybody kind of knew that I remember talking to you right before the trade happened. I remember I had you on my radio show, and we didn't necessarily know it was coming, but you were like, yeah, I'd love if it could ever work out that I could play there, I'd love to play in Seattle. So you come back. Before we get to Seattle, did you ever look back and go, wow, you had a great run here, but did you ever look back and go, boy, that Indiana team got pretty good too? I mean, both teams seemed to benefit from that deal. And you were with an interesting team, a bunch of young guys, Reggie Miller and Rick Smith, who were going to become stars. Did you ever wonder how you would have fit in with that group as they got to the point where they challenged the Bulls every year in the East?
Yeah, I mean, we were, at that point, we were young and dumb, right? I was like the oldest guy there. And, Reggie is just coming into his own, all-star player. Rick hasn't even touched his potential, and Dale Davis and Antonio Davis are, brand new. And yeah, I had success there my last year. I was an all-star, and Reggie was an all-star. And I thought I was going to stay there. But again, sometimes you don't fit in with what they're seeing, or, they brought in Larry Brown, and he did not like how I fit in with the rest of the team. So, that's how it works out. But I'm happy I went to Seattle. I could have gone to many other places. There was talk about New York, and I would have hated playing in New York. I would have, not that I don't like New York, it just wasn't a good fit for me. So I was very happy to go back home, and it worked out great.
Did George and or Bob Whitsitt, did they talk to you about how your days as a sixth man are over? We view you as a starting player. I mean, did you know that coming over here that was going to be the case?
I was not a sixth man anymore in Indiana. I was a starter.
Right. In the last year?
Yeah.
So that's what you expected when you came here then. You're going to get that here.
Yeah, I was established, I was in almost 20-10-7 or something. That's my last year in Indiana. So I didn't expect to go back to the bench, and I never did.
What was the interaction with George like from the start, and then what was it like over the course of your career? George is one of the most unique individuals I ever met in this business, and he almost lived life like his hair was on fire. There was always some crisis coming. but he was a damn good coach. I thought he got the most out of guys. He was good in the crunch usually. What's your view of him as you've got the years to look back now on playing for Georgia, and what you liked about it, and maybe something you didn't like about it?
I had a great time playing for George. It was easy. You practice hard and you play hard, and you play the same way you practice. So if you take those shots in practice and make them, and you don't make them in the game, that's too bad. That's just the way things are. But he was easy to play for. He said, play hard, go hard, fight, hit somebody. And we were a veteran team when you think about who we had, with Sam and Nate and Hershey Hawkins. And I think we provided that stability, especially with media, because George always liked to get into it with the media. It's like
Right.
they all hate us, or they all hate him. I don't know. And and we were like, yeah, whatever, dude, just chill, and so it was great. I mean, I think we all enjoyed playing for him, because it was easy. Our practices sometimes were harder than games because we went at it, and he loved it. He loved fighting in practice. I remember swinging with Burkowski, and he was like all giddy up about it. I'm going, all right, you got two players here swinging at each other. I'm not sure that's a good thing, but he loved that stuff. So.
I mean, that's kind of he I always thought, and he kind of agreed with me when we've talked to him, he was a little bit like Gary in personality. I always said Gary Payton led with his chin his whole life. He was ready. He's like, I'm ready. I'll fight. I'll do anything I got to take to beat you at this. And George was kind of the same way. It may have been why those two had great success together, and why they also went round and round. I mean, George told me once every day of his life started with a 30-minute argument with Gary Payton about something. And I had no trouble believing that. I mean, those two, their relationship must have been interesting for the rest of you guys to watch.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we always call George a schizophrenic, paranoid, something, because there's always something going on, and he created that a lot of times. And Gary just talked smack to anybody, and some of the reporters couldn't take it, so they took it personal, and then he got even worse. So, but in the locker room, yeah, we used to cuss each other out, but it was always about playing hard, and you could always count on that. So as soon as we stepped on the court, it was all out. Everyone played hard, everyone gave it all, and that's something you can count on. And I think that's why we were pretty successful.
Dynamic personalities on that team, and we've talked to everybody involved in it. During the Denver series, I think it was halftime of game 2, Ricky and Gary got into you talk about scraps in the locker room. They got into a pretty good scrap. And there are those who say, well, that's when things went off the rails and you guys end up losing to Denver. Ricky told me he didn't think it was that big a deal, but he wished that they would have talked a little more afterwards. It definitely was a tense time for everyone. What was your view of that? And do you think that there's a direct line from their argument and their disagreement to you guys not being able to beat Denver?
It is my first year there, so I did not really take the leadership role that I probably should have, and I was just trying to fit in and help us win, and we did. We won a lot of games, but there was definitely a dysfunction within the team, because you had some guys that thought it was their turn, or it's their, everyone is there for them, and and it didn't work out. At the same time, I think Denver matched that up really, really well with us, which gave us problems, with Dikembe guarding Sean, which, we never had a center guarding our post player, and, and providing that length. So it was definitely a challenge for us then they had some unbelievable games from some guys, that we didn't expect. But yeah, we had the series basically won, and I remember there was a lot of tension, because we went back to Denver, lost 2 games. I lost the first one, and we had, I think, 3 days in between before the next game. And
that's right.
And I remember the general manager throwing a fit and screaming and saying, you guys just wanted a party or something, and we're flying back home. And there was just some weird going on that I was not aware of. And then, the air just went out. And I had not seen that before, where a team that's that good just totally disintegrated in the last 2-3 games.
Yeah, there's always been. I've always wondered. 'Cause I remember most of the media stayed in Denver. Like, well, we're not going back, and there was always a thought of, again, did that, I think you hit on it. The biggest reason you guys lost to Denver was Denver just matched up well and they all played perfect. Issel coached a great series, but there was a lot of extra stuff, and the flying back and forth, probably didn't help any. It's funny, and again, we talked about this earlier with you with the Hall of Fame. You don't strike me as a guy who sits around and worries about this a lot, but I mean, George certainly still blames himself a little bit for what happened with Denver. The fans still talk about it all these years later. You had a couple of things like that. You were with Portland and had that great 7-game series with the Lakers, the one year, I think the last full year that you played. With Dallas, you got to the 7th game against the Lakers and you couldn't play. Those do stay with you a little bit, don't they? I mean, the losses stick with you a little bit more when you're a great championship caliber athlete.
Not really.
Not for you.
No.
Yeah.
Denver, to me, I would never think about that series. It's we lost in the first round. Over. Portland
Right.
Probably more where we should have won the championship that year. We were up 17 in the 4th, and we were rolling with a second team. We got that lead, and with 10 minutes to go, we pulled everyone and put the starters back in, and they disintegrated. Absolutely just fell apart. And I've never seen that before, having a 17-point lead with 10 minutes to go, lose by like 10. It was horrific to watch. And what pissed me off so much after that everyone was nonchalant about it. And I was like, don't you realize you might never get there again? And this is kind of my last year where I was saying, okay, this is the only reason I came to Portland and took a backseat and just wanted to win a championship. And they're like, yeah, we'll do it again next year. And I'm going, not with these guys. There was just, there was just so many issues there. And that really bugged me because I sacrificed a lot to go there. From a family standpoint and money standpoint, I just said I want to win the championship, and seemed like that was the best option, but obviously it wasn't.
And then the one year that you do get to the finals, 96, I just think a great classic series. I've always thought if Nate had been a little healthier, maybe things would have been different. Who knows? Michael Jordan's at the peak of his powers. The one time you get to the finals, with the notable exception of the fact that the Bulls beat you, did it meet your expectations? In other words, it's a whole different stage there. Do you look back on that and go, yeah, that was something to get to that level?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we all play for. And, we play to win, not just get there. And I think it took us a little bit to settle in after the Utah series, which was, just tough and bloody. And then we basically, I think Chicago was waiting on us, and we basically just flew right away to Chicago and played the next day, and actually could have won the first 2 games. We didn't play great, but we had our chances, and I don't think Chicago played that great. Jordan didn't play that great. He shot a lot, but he didn't make a lot. It's just Rodman got a lot of rebounds, and then like even Luke Longley really hurt us. He really made all those 15-footers that we left them open for, and all those things, right? So, it's you in hindsight, you like to do some things differently, but again, I'm not losing sleep over it.
You know what I remember about that team the most, and how great you guys were as a team, was that Houston series. And it's easy to overlook that because the Utah series was just a classic. Sacramento was a nail biter. It looked like, oh my God, 3 years in a row, you guys are going to lose in the first round, but you get out of that. And I've compared it. It was like a champagne cork coming out of a bottle, and you guys beat Houston. The games were all, reasonably close, 10-point games, but you dominated them, 2-time champs. And I thought that was a great example of that team at its absolute peak. You guys, the way you rolled over Houston. And if the health had been a little better against Chicago, who knows? But that Houston series is a great example of how great you guys were.
Yeah, I think we swept them and played fantastic, and had a good game plan. We played our type defense that we played all year round. We trap and rotate and didn't care who guarded who, and help each other out. And that was really, dominant in that series, because we knew we were going to trap Elijah on every single time he touches the ball. and then we just scramble out of there and fight, and we did, and they couldn't really handle it. You turned the ball over, or they didn't make those 3-point shots when they needed to, and we played really well offensively. So yeah, it's a good series. Should have won, the 2 after that.
Yeah. It's amazing to think how many years have gone by. The belief among everybody is the Sonics are coming back. The arena was the one piece of the puzzle, and Climate Pledge Arena is gorgeous. I'm sure you've been in it by now. They've got facilities for a pro basketball team to have a locker room there. Would you want to have a role with the team? Do you have any interest in doing anything when they come back? And how connected are you to like the business side? I know you're a very successful business guy. How connected are you to the efforts to kind of drive this towards the conclusion of getting the team back?
I'm not connected or involved at all as far as getting the team back. I mean, I'm a supporter and hope we have a chance at it. I've been talking about it for 10 years, and every couple of years it pops up and it's really active. Oh, this could be the year, and then it goes away again, and we wait. So I hope it happens. I think we have a facility now that is amazing. That's maybe the best facility in the States for basketball and ice hockey or concerts, and it would be great to have a team back. I don't know how I would be involved. Maybe at a retirement level, if I retire from this job and sit around and help out in some ways and mentorship or whatnot. But I don't see a role. I definitely will not coach ever again. It's not my life. And being involved in a team where you're hands-on, that's your whole life. And to some degree, yes, I would like to be part of it and support it and help wherever I can. But I'm not going to take a 14-hour-a-day job anymore.
So somebody's got to sit in the front row seats. Maybe that could be your involvement. Someone's got to do. And you did a couple of years of coaching with the Sonics right near the end of their stay here, and it seems like that didn't take. That wasn't something you enjoyed.
Oh, I love teaching. No, I do. Mm-hmm. I love teaching and being involved, coming up with game plans and all that. It's just, it wasn't a good situation. We didn't have a good situation at that time for the Sonics. They're really, imploding at the time. And then, we knew they're going to move, and so there's no way I would move somewhere else to coach. That's the only place I would coach was here, and that opportunity is going away. So, no, I joined it. Would probably be a lot better now than I was back then, because I could still play at that point. But no, it's not. For my time in life, it's not something I'm going to do anymore.
All right, Detlef, you've been generous with your time, but there's one last thing. And this is actually the whole reason I called and got you on this, because I wanted to ask you, why is it that you have popped up so much in pop culture over the years, in TV sitcoms, there's a Band of Horses song that mentions you. It's funny to me that this, I mean, has this been by design? Do you have an agent who's pushed pushed people to do this, or has this just been by luck? Why is it that every time I turn around, I'm seeing your name in something that doesn't have to do with the NBA?
I don't know. Pure luck, I would think. But yeah, if you see it, great, because I sure don't see the benefit of it.
There's no checks coming in?
No. But no, I don't know. I did a couple of TV shows for fun, for charity purposes. There's just some random stuff, and maybe it's a weird name that needs to buy a vowel for the last name would be a little helpful. But yeah, I have no idea. But it's been kind of interesting, because now, it used to be going somewhere and someone says, "Oh, I used to watch you play," and now it's, "Hey, you're the guy from Park and Rec," and I go, "Yeah, I'm the guy. I'm the star. I'm the
star." That's me. I was a sitcom star.
Yeah, huge.
Well, I'm gonna start telling my friends that you're the Edgar Martinez of the NBA. I actually, because I thought of it, I love that comparison. But I do like the idea of keeping your name out there. I'm a believer and I know, again, this isn't something that's worrying you, but I am a believer when you talk about these kind of honors. There are guys that just make it because of just overwhelming numbers, but there are other guys you have to look at the whole picture. And when you look at the whole picture of what you did, and you did it for a long time, you had 11 consecutive years where you played 33 minutes a game or more, that weighs in at some point. You had a great career. Your sitcom career has been not as great by comparison, but it's certainly out there. And it's fun talking to you as always. And congratulations again on the great work with the foundation, Det. I appreciate getting to talk to you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Good luck to you.
Thanks, Det. Detlef Schrempf with us on Iconic Sonics and brought to you by Swinomish Casino and Lodge and Dick's Drive-In Restaurants. You can get more information on the series at iconicsonics.com. We'll talk to you next time.